If you're fascinated by Japanese culture, today's video is for you. You may be wondering, why are you dressed like Squirtle, Amy? Well, today I'll be sharing my top Japanese books this year that opened my eyes to different aspects of life in Japan, from how Japanese products like karaoke, Hello Kitty, video games, and Pokemon became global phenomenons to its more peaceful, reflective culture with its own quirks. Now grab a cup of tea and join me as we explore Japan through these unforgettable reads. Welcome back, friends. We are talking about books today, which is a little different from my usual on this channel about food, travel, and culture, but I promise by the end of this video, you will get a deeper insight into Japanese culture. In case you didn't know, I love books, and I have gotten quite into the nonfiction space in the last year, and I talk all about it in my BookTube channel, Amy Ends Reads, so go there if you love talking books like I do. But I am so glad that I love books and my whole family loves books because everybody has a different taste or preference in books, right? And the book that I'm going to talk about first was one that my husband put on the list, requested it on Libby, and I saw it come because we have the same library account. And when I saw it, I went, oh, that sounds really cool. So I went and asked him, can I read it first? Do you have a long list of books that you're reading right now? And he has a long TBR, that's to be read list, like I do. So he was gracious enough to say, yeah, you can read it first. And so I dove right in to this book called Pure Invention: How Japan Made the Modern World by Matt Alt. It explains how Japan's post-war pop culture innovations shaped global culture, products, and lifestyles. It goes into a pretty dang thorough history of a lot of these phenomenons that are now part of our everyday lives, or at least my childhood, and explains the unique ways in which Japan's pop culture spread across borders and influenced everything from technology, entertainment, and even social habits. So let's dive in. The influence of Japanese pop culture. These are seemingly niche or quirky products like Hello Kitty, Walkman, Pokemon, and Tamagotchi. Do you remember all these things? I don't know if all of those evoke this childhood nostalgia in you as it does for me. Let me know if it does, so I know that you are in my age range or you are older and you remember these things as they happened, because they were huge. And they were also unexpected global phenomenons. A lot of these inventions, people didn't think they would work. The people that invented them didn't think that it would become this big thing. People doubted their ideas, but look what happened. But there are some commonalities, as you will see throughout this book, where it is blending this thing that resonated with people. And it is this mix of kawaii, which is cute. If you've ever heard someone say, ah, kawaii, that means cute. But it even has more of this. It's like a very specific kind of cute that is very Japanese, and mixes that with this more human-centered experience, and later on more of a tech experience as well. But it is this blending of a perfect mix of these things that really made it a household thing across the globe. Another interesting thing to dive into is this idea of soft power and a cool Japan, especially post-war, because they did not go across the globe because of their military might and become this powerful nation. It was through cultural exports, really, that it became this important country in the eyes of the globe. This includes things that you might not even think of, like anime. I'm going to bet that either you started being interested in Japanese culture or started learning Japanese because of anime, or you know someone that does. If that's true, give me a yes in the comments so I know this is true. But it is anime that created like otakudom, which is otaku means like a very strong fandom where people get obsessed about these things. You've seen people dress up, you've seen all these things. It's like Comic-Con, everything has roots to that where people get obsessed about some of this stuff. And now it's kind of this normal thing. But at the time, it wasn't. And this being an otaku, it wasn't looked at upon really great either. But it is a fascinating deep dive look into where some of these things originated. So we have our animes, we have our cars. You know that Japanese cars are everywhere, and for good reason, at least in my opinion. They are consistent, they are reliable. I've had my cars for very long periods of time. Thank you, Japanese cars. And thank you for putting that time into it, the people that did at that time when other countries were not, because that's really what set them apart. Other companies just weren't putting the effort into it that they needed to innovate, to make it better, to make it more reliable, all that kind of stuff. Now it's just a household name. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, right? Then you, of course, have the Walkman, which was a game changer. And if you're going, oh, well, I use my iPhone now, where do you think that came from before, right? We have our iPhones. And then before that, it was like the iPods. And all of that had this deep root into the Walkman, which was the first of its kind. People didn't think that it was going to work, that people were going to want these like personal devices that had their own music. But it was a huge hit because we all know we like doing that. Now we like listening to our music, our podcasts, our YouTube videos, our whatever on our own devices, right? But I'll get into this a little bit later too. But I also appreciate that Sony thought about how can we make this not so isolating, because there is a tendency for devices to make us isolated. And in community, in culture, in relationship is where people really belong. And so to take people into isolation wasn't great. So I love that they made some innovations, some changes to try to get it more community based as well. And so we had that. And of course, video games, friends. I mean, video games, who doesn't know what Super Mario is or what a Nintendo console is, right? Whether you have one or not, you've heard of it, you've played one, you've know someone that plays one or is obsessed with one. It became a global phenomenon. And this one might be not as, but vending machines. Vending machines are also a huge thing. In Asia, they are everywhere. I love going to Japan because you can pretty much get anything in a vending machine. Name me something in the comments that you think you can't get in a vending machine. I bet you can. And in other cultures or other countries, it might not be as huge, but there are vending machines everywhere in the world. And the importance of them or the convenience and root of it, Japan. Japan made it super, super popular. And yes, there is a vending machine for that. Just like there's an app for that, there's a vending machine for that. And then as we talk about technology, there was this ability to miniaturize or refine technology and contribute to consumer products that were functional and emotionally appealing. So, like I said, the Walkman is a prime example of that, where you are making it more personal, you're making it portable, you are connecting with technology in a new way. And so now people were able to take these things that resonated with them. And it's also a form of self-expression, to be able to listen to the music that you like on your own, right? And dive deep into that because we know there's a huge emotional connection that people have to music. And this feeds into this digital and virtual trend that Japan really rode really well, because there are these digital creations like Nintendo, Pokemon, and Tamagotchi, which completely reshape these ideas of play, connection, and even self-care in this digital age. Because all of these things you can do by yourself, but there's actually also a huge component of community that can be placed in these. And there's also this transcendence of age. Like people can play from the age of 4, 5 to 90, right? Maybe some are easier than others, but I remember having this Tamagotchi in, I don't know, middle school or high school or something. I carried around the keychain, right? And it was like the digital flower baby, if you all had flower babies in middle school, to keep these things alive. And all my friends had one and all this. And it's just this. fun thing to do and share your experience of becoming a mother to this little egg baby. And Pokemon, there's all kinds of different ways to play, right? But for example, Pokemon Go was a way to take isolated game playing to a more community-oriented thing where you go out and meet people or you play with people, you talk about it. There are all these things that you can do, and this age thing kind of gets blurred, right? Because it's not that hard to play. It's accessible. And so whether you are 5 and playing with an adult together, or you are 90 and you are collecting these Pokemons, anybody can really play and have fun. And the beauty of Pokemon, it's really funny because the book dives into the history of it, but it started because the person that invented it loved insects as a kid, loved collecting insects as a kid. This just tells you that you don't know what kind of fun or hobby that you have that might turn into something else in the future. So find your joys, friends. I always say that, right? But if you love doing something, find time to do it. One of the quick histories that I'll deep dive into, but Pokemon became one of Japan's most successful and culturally influential exports, right? It transformed not only the gaming world, but also global entertainment because there's this combination of adventure, collection, and friendship all have universal resonance. And combined with the cute or kawaii factor, it just hits people of all ages and abilities, really. It was created by Satoshi Tajiri in 1996, and it really wasn't expected to be this huge hit. It was inspired by his childhood love for collecting insects, friends. Of all things, collecting insects. It's a familiar activity for many people, especially Japanese children, but one that translated internationally. And it embodies this Japanese kawaii-ness, particularly compelling to the younger audience, but the success reflects its ability to create products that blend this playfulness with more complexity, rewarding systems, encouraging both competition and cooperation among players so that it appeals from the young to the old and it makes it accessible in gameplay and mechanics. And that just makes it cross-cultural. Linguistic barriers are gone because the idea is simple, but it adds good tech into it. And it has become a part of children's media globally. And now there's everything, right? There's games, TV shows, movies, merch, and more. And it's just this immersive storytelling that keeps you engaged. They keep coming up with new things. They help you engage in a solo world as well as with friends, with community, meeting new people. It's it's a phenomenon, cross media, cross country, cross globe. And it just shows Japan's influence on global entertainment and gaming. Japan also globalized everyday objects. So, karaoke. Have you heard of karaoke? It is something that people actually started because they just thought it would be fun. It was an entertainment thing for a group of friends. And people didn't even think this would be such a hit that they needed to put copyrights or put any sort of rights on it. So the book talks about how the first two people that invented it, they kind of fight about who invented it first, and they don't even get the rights or the money that comes from globalizing it because big companies recognized how much of a hit this idea was, that it wasn't copyrighted, and they dove in. And it became this big thing because it is a form of self-expression. It is a form of having fun that is a completely different way. And it's really a simple concept, right, of instrumental music and having words for the song so that you can belt out those emotional tunes in your own way, in your own space. And it's also fascinating that depending on the culture or the country, the way that they have karaoke set up is different. So in Asia, for example, there are a lot of individual rooms or boxes that is more popular where you go with your friends, you rent out a room, and you can sing to your heart's desire, right? Whereas in America, I think it's still a lot more popular to have karaoke bars or places where it is a room full of people that you might not know, and you get up when your song is called and you sing in front of people you don't know. I do not feel as comfortable with that. Maybe that's why I would prefer those boxes. And I'm not a fantastic singer, friends. I don't know if you are. Maybe that makes a difference too. But there are these concepts that are global. However, it just gets adapted to wherever it gets taken. And that is the beauty of it too. But the origin lies in Japan, really rooting from freedom of expression and the desire for that in community. So, as you can imagine, I really enjoyed this book, and Matt Alt argues that Japan's post-war innovations deeply influenced not only consumer habits, but also social dynamics, and the inventions continue to define this modern globalized life. And I'd love to hear if you agree with that. It shows the complex journey that Japan has been through from borrowing ideas to creating unique, iconic products that then resonate universally. We've all heard of them. If you want to go deeper into each of those different concepts, this is your book. But if you want to talk about a little more emotional, a little more thought-provoking, kind of sit down with a cup of coffee, let's talk about Before We Forget Kindness, which is part of the Before the Coffee Gets Cold bestseller series by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And I read this book as an arc, Before We Forget Kindness. It is the fifth book of this series. ARC is an advanced reader copy. I received this through NetGalley. If you're curious about advanced reader copies, I have a whole YouTube video that I just posted on my booktube, so check that out for all the information how you can get advanced reader copies of some really fun books. This particular book is coming out November 5th, so almost there as of the date of this posting. But this whole series is a heartwarming philosophical series about a little bit of time travel and human connection. So if you're willing to be imaginative and go in that space of time travel, this is for you. It is set in a small tucked away cafe in Tokyo. And friends, raise your hand if you've ever in your life thought, I wish I could do that incident over again, or I wish I could have reacted to that situation differently. And if you didn't raise your hands, friend, I know you're lying. So here's a summary of some of the themes and key elements that you can take away from this book and why I think you're going to love it. So there is some magical realism in time travel. Like I said, in the cafe, customers can travel back or forward in time, but there are a lot of rules to time travel here. You can only travel within the cafe to a specific time, and the person has to have visited the cafe because obviously you can only time travel within the cafe. It is also only until the coffee gets cold, hence the name of the first book. So that gives you maybe 10 minutes max of talking to the person or people that you want to talk to. It's the unique twist on time travel, and it emphasized the fleeting and precious nature of every single moment, how we can prioritize how to use the time that we have, and it just makes each journey that much more intentional and deeply introspective, in my opinion. Each book has a subset of stories that centers on characters that are seeking closure or clarity with someone from their past, or maybe in the future, whether this is reuniting with a lost love, talking to a deceased relative, or apologizing for a mistake. These characters' journeys highlight this universal theme of regret and love and loss and reconciliation, and importantly, hope. And it also shows that sometimes a simple conversation with a clearer mind can really heal these long-standing wounds and bring new understanding to a situation. I also love that there are interactions between the cafe owners or other people in the cafe that are really strangers, but a simple word, a simple hand, a simple gesture really changes people's perspectives and gives this healing and this love that we need, right? So I also want us to be mindful of what is one small thing that we can do for someone that is hurting. If we see someone that is hurting, regardless of whether we know them or not, um, little touches can really go a long way. Another important rule in this cafe is that while you can time travel to change how something happened, the strict rule is there that you cannot change the ultimate outcome of these events. So, what is currently happening? For example, there is a boy that is told that their parents are getting, or his parents are getting a divorce, and he wants to go back in time and change how he reacted to that and how he responded to his parents, whom he dearly loves. And while in the present, it will not change the fact that they got a divorce. He can go back and change, or he wants to go back and change how that conversation took place. So that's an example of how you cannot change the current and what has happened, but you can change what your reaction was and have a conversation that you wish you could do differently. So this restriction really underscores the theme that while the past cannot be changed, the present and future are still within our control. We can change how we think about them. We encourage characters to accept their circumstances and then grow from them. It just reflects this richness of everyday lives and how we interact with others and the resilience required to move forward despite all the hardships that we will go through in life. The series is just a thoughtful meditation on life. And I've only read the first and the fifth book. I haven't read the second through the fourth, but I can imagine that every single one would be emotional for me. It is moving. I got teary reading a lot of these because some of these hit real close to home, whether it is a ill parent or an ill loved one, or there are parent-child relationships that are strained and they wish they could have done something differently. Those are all things that really hit hard for me, or how we treated a friend and how we wish we could have done things differently. I think there's things that everybody can resonate with, which is why this has become bestseller and why it's these small books, but they can make such a big impact after we've read them. If you have read either of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or if you have other recommendations, drop those in the comments too. And remember, my non-Japanese book talk is all over my book talk, especially, or my booktube. So join me there for any of those book conversations. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Mata ne.